I'm Shorty and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Shorty Skate Series. So this week it was too cold to go outside and film a skate tutorial, so I thought I'd go over some questions and answers about wide trucks versus narrow trucks. So I got a lot of questions on my Instagram and YouTube channel about wide trucks versus narrow trucks, which is the best, etc. I'll try and get through all of them in this video. Please note that this is all based on my personal experience. So other people might have different experiences on why they like wide trucks versus narrow trucks. One thing to note is that I'm quite short, so I'm 5'1¼ and I weigh about 53 kilograms. So I do think body type impacts the way wide trucks might feel for an individual. For example, I'm a size 4 in Bont, and with Discotrux, the base of my skate looks like this. So it's quite square, almost square. Whereas my husband, who's a size 9 in Bont, with Discotrux, his is very rectangular. So you can see how the different size in foot can impact the way a wide truck might feel for you.
Are Discotrux the only ones you've used, or can you share comparisons with other wide trucks?
So penny trucks and Discotrux are the only two wide trucks that I've used. I started out using penny trucks with an Avanti plate and then switched over to Discotrux with a tracer plate. So penny trucks are 3 inches wide, so that's about 76 millimeters, whereas Discotrux are 70 millimeters. I found that the 6 millimeters, while it doesn't seem much, actually made a big difference, as when I skated on penny trucks, I felt like I was always going to clip my wheels, like that was always in the back of my mind. But with Discotrux, that doesn't happen. So I feel very confident skating on the Discotruck. However, this does lead me into the next question, which is,
does catching your feet in skates with wide trucks happen often? Can you talk about the risk of injury as well?
So skating on wide trucks does take some time to get used to, and with roller skating, there's always a risk. It might be a little bit higher with wide trucks because you can clip yourself if you're not used to having your feet a little bit wider and staggered. I do still sometimes clip myself with Discotrux if I'm not really paying attention, as you can see in this clip here. But I definitely don't have that in the back of my mind when I'm skating on Discotrux. Whereas, as I said before, when I was skating on penny trucks, I did always have that fear. So for the next topic, I got quite a lot of questions. What's the difference? Which is easier? How was the balance? Do you feel more stable on wide trucks? Which tricks or skate styles are easier or harder on each type? So for me, I like to skate wide trucks for the extra stability. So if I'm skating vert, doing flips, landing big airs, having wide trucks gives me a bigger landing base. Whereas compared to narrow trucks, you can see it's a smaller base and your side-to-side stability isn't as great. But depending on your skating style, you might not need the extra stability. So if you're not looking to skate vert or you have better stability in landing, which I don't, especially if I'm doing spins, I need this extra wide base to help me from not falling over. In terms of sliding with wide trucks, I tend to slide more flat like this because depending on what obstacle I'm on, if I angle it in too much, my front or my back wheel will catch. Whereas if I'm sliding with narrow trucks, I can angle my foot a lot more before my wheels touch. So in that sense, sliding is a lot easier with narrow trucks than with wide trucks if you want to angle your foot in more.
But for stalling, having wide trucks will give you better stability, especially if you're looking to spin into stalls like half cabs, full cabs, and 360s. So for me, wide trucks make it easier to stall, but narrow trucks make it easier to slide.
In terms of agility and carving on wide trucks, of course, wide trucks are going to be a lot harder than narrow trucks just because you'll have that wider turning circle because it's so wide, whereas narrow trucks, you'll be able to turn a lot faster. Just think of it as a car versus motorbike type situation.
But when carving a line, you're not really looking to turn tight circles. And for half pipes and vert, you're more likely to be airing the coping. So having the stability of wide trucks might be more important than agility, which it is for me. Grinding. Which is easier to grind? Are you still able to grind with narrow trucks? Will wide trucks help me unlock rail grinds? Are wide trucks only a plus for grinds?
So the short answer on can you grind with narrow trucks is yes. But it's sort of less grinding on the truck and more sort of rolling on the wheels. Even if you're grinding with narrow trucks on a rail, you'll most likely be rolling on top of the rail rather than grinding. So I actually like sliding and grinding with narrow trucks, mainly because the coping or rail does lock into your wheels here. So you feel more solid and your foot doesn't sort of slip about. However, you have to be more accurate when landing on coping or rails. So you have to make sure that your foot lands right on top of the rail coping. Whereas with wide trucks, you'll most likely be grinding somewhere in between your wheels. See, you have a bigger margin of where you can land that rail or coping. So that's why some people think it's easier to grind with wide trucks, just because you can land not as accurately. However, when grinding on rails with wide trucks, you can feel a little unstable at first when you're learning, because you do have that wider space. So your foot can sort of like wiggle around a little bit, or like go like this. So some people do prefer grinding on rails with narrows, but again, it's a lot easier to land your grinding tricks with wide trucks. But it's sort of personal preference. But for those who follow my Instagram, you might have seen that I've sort of switched up and combined the two, best of both worlds. For my grinding foot, I have wide trucks, and for my sliding foot, I have narrow trucks, so that when I land, I don't have to be as accurate. And then for my sliding foot, there's no risk of me clipping my wheels with my narrow trucks. Of course, there's a difference in weight, so I'm not sure how that will impact my body later down the track. But for now, this setup has been working wonders for me. So I'm able to try tricks that I didn't think possible on quads. So I guess the next question is, which one's better? And I think it comes down to personal preference. So if you need the extra stability and you want to be able to grind easier, then go for wide trucks. If you don't have any issues with stability and you want to be able to angle your feet easier, then staying on narrow trucks might be the best option for you. Also, if you're able to grind with narrow trucks, then really there's no need to be switching to wide trucks just for the ability to grind. So for me, if I'm skating vert or doing big airs, practicing flips, I prefer to switch to full wide trucks, because I do need that extra stability, because when I rotate, I tend to rotate off axis and go bleh. So having the wider base helps me. For sliding and grinding, this week I've been experimenting with one wide truck, one narrow truck, mainly because it's easier for me to land that grinding foot with a wide truck. If I could, if I was good enough, I would wear full narrow trucks, just so that it would be easier for me to do royales and unities with the narrow, because I have to angle my feet like this or like this. But I'm not at that stage, so one wide, one narrow is it for me.
How wide of wide trucks to get?
So there are a few different brands of wide trucks out in the world. Just for reference, the Bont Prodigy or Tracer Plate truck, the standard or narrow truck, is 43 millimeters. As I mentioned, the Discotrux is 70 millimeters. And if you're looking to go super wide, like skating vert, like massive mega ramp vert, then you can go 100 millimeters or 10 centimeters. So this is the Discotrux wide, super wide, which you can take the 70 millimeter off. Just have to unscrew these two bolts, take it off and replace it with this one. So it's super easy if you want to go super wide. So that's all the questions I have time for right now. There were a few more on my Instagram, but I'll answer them in the description below. Also, if you have any other questions, you can comment below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So I hope this video was helpful in giving a little bit of insight as to wide trucks versus narrow trucks and what might be right for you. And thanks for watching.